Hi, guys. Welcome to the TIFF press conference for Shame. I'm Maria Rowley, press conference manager. Just a few housekeeping notes. Once we get everyone from the film standing on the podium, we'll have about 60 seconds of flash photography. After that, photographers, please move to the back of the room by the risers. No flash photography during the press conference. Please keep the center aisle and the sides clear for our volunteers with microphones. And members of the media, please stand and identify yourself and the name of your media outlet when you ask a question. And everybody, please make sure to take your cell phones off. The press conference is being streamed live at www.tiff.net/festival. And now it's my pleasure to welcome the producers, director, and lead actor of Shame, as well as our moderator, Henri Behar. Thanks.
Man down.
Steve, right in the middle. Thank you. Right over here, please. That's it.
And Michael, one more right here. Right in the
And Michael right here.
Thanks.
Michael right where the hand is. Michael, right where the hand is. Thank you.
Michael over here.
Steve.
Ian.
Michael this side, please. Up here above.
And now can we bring you guys in for a shot?
Nice shirt, Michael.
Thanks, man.
Michael in the middle, please. Michael above. Michael.
And gentlemen, right in the very, very middle.
Everybody looking at my hand, please. That's great.
Okay, while photographers are at it for a couple more minutes, I'd like to remind you that if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand a little bit ahead of time so that we can see you, and more importantly, so we can get the mic to you. When you have the mic, please introduce yourselves, ask your question, and give the mic back. Thank you very much. Last night.
Music.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the press conference for Shame. And I will introduce the people who are here on this panel, starting from my far right, your far left. Behind the camera, the producers, Ian Canning and Emile Sherman. Sitting next to me, the director, Steve McQueen. And in the middle, the main actor, Mr. Michael Fassbender, who, I must say, got the Best Actor award in Venice a few days ago and flew immediately afterwards to be with us last night at the premiere of the movie. Thank you, Michael. Now, can you describe the madness of Venice and Toronto?
Yeah, they're kind of sort of blurred into one. Obviously, there's not the sort of same water content here. So I'm walking around in cars instead of in boats, but other than that, yeah, it's a bit of a whirlwind, really. I really like Toronto and Canada in general. I've sort of been lucky enough to work here and attend Toronto Film Festival. I think it was in 2008 we were here. And it's a nice atmosphere here, and feels very sort of home-like. And we sort of discovered that Toronto Film Festival is the biggest film festival after Cannes, but it feels very close and very sort of family-like. So it's really quite special to be here.
Last night, Mr. McQueen, when you introduced the film, you said that obviously Hunger was a political movie, but you also said that this one was just as political as Hunger was, but in a different sort of way. Would you care to expand on that? Unless I misunderstood what you said.
No, you're quite correct. Just in the sexual politics, really. I think a sex addict as such, or a person who has an affliction to this disease as such, pornography, the internet, the access of pornographic images, the access to sort of sexual content is sort of quite, prevalent. It's everywhere, and I think that was the sort of starting point to sort of explore someone who had this affliction. In my day, to sort of pornography was on the top shelf of a newsagent. It was a faraway thing, and now the access to it it's much more prevalent, and therefore it has a sort of influence to the amount of sort of activity there is in the sex addiction state as such. That makes any sense. I'll get better, don't worry.
No, but that's more societal than political, is it?
Excuse me?
It's more a question of society than a question of politics.
Yes, no, politics as well, because I mean, the sexualization of images, I mean, to sell anything or whatever, it's prevalent, it's all around us. Sex is all around us, but it's done in a way, in a very commercial way. As pornography is in some way, it's you know, you pay to go online or whatever. It has a certain kind of it's active in our everyday. You know, if you're aware of it or not, it's prevalent. It's very, very active. And of course, to navigate your way through this world it's difficult. It's difficult. I think everyone's involved.
Do you gentlemen agree, Michael, Ms. Ian, Emil?
Yeah, I mean, I think of the start of our process was in New York and meeting a few people and meeting a few experts in the field, and I think Steve said last night we thought that we'd be meeting people in anoraks who sort of spent all day watching porn, and what we met were some of the most sophisticated people who just couldn't manage their lives in the same way that people can't sometimes manage their food intake or their drink intake. And I think it was a real surprise for us, and it was we thought we were going to be sort of having a drink and laughing about it, and actually it felt like a day of maths. It was quite an intense experience.
Nothing further to add on that.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think the fact of the matter is, you know, this is this interesting thing, you know, that the sort of the whole idea that sex is such a primal instinct, obviously originally there in order for us to survive, to procreate, reproduce, and not go extinct. And as sort of, you know, we've developed or not, we arrive at a place where, you know, of course people realize that it is such a strong instinct and therefore so prevalent within the human race, so people set about to make money out of it. And so everywhere you go, there's sex is being sold to you one way or the other. And like Steve said, I mean, you'd have to be pretty blinkered not to realize that or see it. Whether that be whether you're buying a soda or even a breakfast cereal, sex is being sold to you, and you're told what to sort of wear or how much you should weigh or how you should look in order to be sexy, in order to be successful, in order to be accepted. And so there's just so much information, and it's so exploited that for somebody like Steve and two gentlemen here to take on board the topic and deal with it in a very serious way and open it up and look at it in a very honest way, I think is what makes it special. And what makes it really special for me is the fact that audiences have responded the way they have, meaning that there is still a place, contrary to many of the films being made, for an intelligent, brave audience that can take chances and involve themselves in the film, ask questions, participate when they go to the cinema, as opposed to just sitting there eating popcorn and being entertained with that comfortable fourth wall in between the screen and the audience. No, they sort of step over that wall and they're in it with Brandon, in it with these characters, experiencing it, questioning themselves.
Now, Mr. McQueen, after the success of Hunger, how have things changed in the way you work? Do you now just say to your producers, oh, by the way, I'd like to make a movie about sex, and they'll go, yes, okay, we're in. Michael, you're going to be a sex addict. Okay, count me in. No script, no nothing. I wish it were the case, if it's not.
Yeah, pretty much.
Moving on. I'll answer that one. We'll put a pause between that one. I'll think about that one, Michael. Moving on. So yes, in effect, yes. I wanted to make a movie about sex addiction, and Ian and Emil were just the best producers, because I imagine most producers will not want to do it, and if they were going to do it, they want to do it in a different way. They didn't I've never been told you cannot do this. There's always been a conversation, and let's proceed. So it's been the support of Ian Canning and Emil Sherman has been amazing. I mean, to think of something like The King's Speech and think of something like Shame is totally two different films, but the sort of the bravery and the sort of tenaciousness of their support was fantastic. Yeah, great. Michael?
No reticence, no questions from you, Michael, when you were offered the part?
No, I mean, I think Steve first came to me with said to me that he had this idea in 2008. We were going to dinner in the House of Parliament in London. It was a celebration of Film 4 and their contribution to film. And Steve just mentioned it over the dinner to me, and I was like, well, just tell me when and where, It's really that simple. I've said it before, Steve and the opportunity that he gave me in Hunger changed my life. And just the working relationship is a very, honest and exciting and scary and rewarding one. So I jumped at the opportunity.
I think there's a question here. No, I'm sorry. I thought you raised your hand. Any questions? Okay, then we'll continue our conversation here. Okay, the lady.
Just for Michael, Christine with Reuters here. Coming off your success at Venice, what would a likely Oscar nomination mean for you at this stage of your career, working with McQueen again? What would that mean for you?
Obviously you're very flattered and very honored to sort of be, mentioned in that category, but I don't think about it too much, to be honest, because that way madness lies. I just try and sort of concentrate on whatever job is at hand. What is amazing for me is, to be working with great filmmakers and great storytellers and to try and learn as much as I can from them. And, the rest is going to sort of take care of itself or not. And so my energy is better placed in other areas, just really in terms of my work,
Question over there. Yes, just a second. Let the mic get to you.
Merci. It's a powerful performance from you, Mr. Fassbender. Michael, really, truly compelling, actually. How did you get into the character? Did the director, Steve McQueen, gave you the freedom to go into it, or he really directed you in a very, not strict way, but...
I think, great directors are great manipulators. And I think, Steve is very good at doing that in less obvious ways than just on set, really. It's like, whether we're having a sort of lunch conversation or, just taking a stroll around New York. I mean, we talk a lot, and then we have a very collaborative experience. It's basically, he gives me the sort of the tools to go about doing kind of what I want, really, but within the sort of, it's hard to explain. It's like what I always say, sort of working with Steve is like that thing of take a chance, If you fall flat on your face, what's the worst that can happen? We're all going to die. Well, let's try and do something that makes a difference, that risks are taken, that we kind of, work without the luxury of a safety net, and and we don't know. I mean, a lot of the times I think we do a lot of preparation, each of us individually and together, and then we come on set and we don't know what's going to happen. That element of unsurety as well, and that idea of experimenting. So what we thought was one idea, flip it and see what happens if you do it totally on the opposite polar spectrum. And so it's having the freedom to be awake and aware on set and allow things to happen and take risks.
I just want to say also, it's a little bit like jazz in a way. I mean, you write the music, there's a melody, the harmony, and within that form, within that sort of piece of music, you can improvise. But there's a roof, there's a ceiling. You have to improvise within a certain kind of certain notes you could play within that space, and. I don't hire robots, I hire actors, just like great players. And of course, Michael's a great player. So you write the song, and then, it's a chance for him to improvise. And within that frame, he improvises. And of course, you can't go out of that because it'd be wrong. But within that frame, and that's what he does. I mean, there's many great examples. I mean, my favorite example is a very simple example you see in the film, when Michael is sort of standing outside the elevator. It's kind of a shot that people are using a lot for the press images. And he presses the button for the elevator, and he was meant to get into the elevator, but he pressed the button to the elevator, and he looked at the elevator door closed, and he went back and sat down. Well, that's beautiful, because as a brother, in the scene, it makes sense, as a brother, not wanting to sort of confront the situation of what could be going upstairs with his boss. It was beautiful. You know, that's something you write the music, the person improvises, and he does his thing. It was much more beautiful than him going into the elevator. You know, it was wonderful, wonderful. It's a genius moment. Simple, but that's what it's about.
Now, at a script level, there's some dialogue in the film. A lot of it actually belonged to Carey Mulligan, but visually. And the film is extremely visual. The sex scenes, or the scenes depicting sexual activity, are different from one to the other. How detailed was it in the script, and how much did you do?
You can't really detail that. Yeah, you can't really. No, interesting question. You can't really detail that in the script. It's got to be about, it's got to be about the actors. It's got to be about the. The set designs, got with the cameraman, how you play that. For example, there's a piece where Nicole and Bahari and Michael, Marianne and Brandon are sort of attempting to make love. You know, they want to make. Brandon's trying to make love, and the whole idea of holding that shot for such a long time is to basically show the audience that he's trying. He's trying to sort of, in a way, have a normal sexual relationship. It's very tender, it's very sensual, it's very sexy in a way. But of course it breaks down. It breaks down. His attempt of sort of being normal, his attempt of sort of trying to have an intimate relationship sort of breaks down. And I stick with that in that way. What I mean by that frame, you have to stay with that. It's tense, and we want to see what happens, but it breaks down. Compare that to, for example, the threesome. The threesome, I think I wanted to make it a foursome, to bring the audience right in there. So it was a foursome, and had the camera, obviously quite close to Michael and to Dee Dee and Calamity, the other actress. And what they did in that scene is the highest quality of acting there is, because it was very, of course, intimate, but it was just one of those things which actually happened on film, and we were very happy to catch it. But it was all about getting the camera very close, so it was like a foursome. The audience was the first person. Excuse me.
How comfortable or uncomfortable were those scenes to shoot, Michael?
It's pretty uncomfortable. It's kind of embarrassing, to sort of be, sort of naked or whatnot in front of a crew of people, but you've got to get over it, really, and sort of just get on with it. And I knew what I was getting into before it, and the most important thing is that that the story is being told, and just to sort of describe as well, sort of getting back to sort of the various sort of sexual sort of relations that he has. I thought right after the scene with Marianne, Nicole's character, you have this sort of frenzied, very physical act of sex up against the window. And that describes him and his state of mind and where he's at. And that was the interesting thing with the sex scenes, that it wasn't a form of exploitation or titillation. It was really a study of this guy and his relationship with himself and his relationship with other people. And so it makes it a lot easier when it's handled with such care and under the hands of Steve.
Question over there, ma'am.
Yes, my name's Angela Walcott from Sway Magazine. And my question is for Mr. McQueen. There was an interview that you did with The Telegraph in 2009, and you were quoted as saying that your films are meant to engage the audience as a director. So as an artist, how would you like the audience to be engaged in your films?
Well, I want to earn their trust. I think, once, you want people to sort of, how can I say, to to trust you as a filmmaker, because you know I think when people sit down in a movie, they're kind of skeptical anyway. But once you sort of gain their trust, they're open to what you will offer them. And I don't know. I just hope they come away with an experience where they feel involved, or they feel part of it. I mean, one of the sort of aspects of that was the backstory to Brandon and Sissy, and not having it spelled out exactly what happened to them and so forth. The reason why I did that, I think, because I wanted to make it not mysterious, but actually familiar to everyone in the audience, that they would know or have an idea of what possibly was the problem in the past, by not actually telling it, spelling it out in some ways that the audience are involved in what possibly it could be. So just respecting the audience, really.
Sir.
Hello, Mathieu Chantelois from Cineplex Magazines in Canada. One of the most mesmerizing moments for me in the film was when Carey Mulligan sang New York, New York, and your reaction, Mr. Fassbender, to it. I would love to know what was the direction, Mr. McQueen, that you gave the actors, and because it was so strong and so with a few words, with no words.
That was another thing. I think what's interesting about Michael, if I may say, in that moment, because in that moment, a lot of things going on. You can imagine, lots of people. We had people visiting the set who, what the fuck are they doing there? Get the hell out. Lots of unfortunate situations and noise and whatnot. And all I told Marcus was to keep focus, keep focus, keep focus, keep focus. And it was amazing, because with all that stuff going on, to have that intimacy in one's head at that time, and Carey singing, and the reaction was just incredible. Again, with Carey, it was a case of keeping it together. I think at those moments of those intimate moments, that's when I think an actor needs a support. But at the same time, they've got to produce. And I think what Michael and Carey produced it's quite moving. Quite moving. It gives me goose pimples thinking about it, actually.
It's if I just sort of added to that, like again with the backstories element there, one thing that really sort of describes sort of tragedy for me of Brandon is the fact that we had discussed and sort of came to the conclusion that he's a really good piano player, and it's something that he doesn't have in his life anymore. Why? He's given it up, and that was something that I thought was interesting to draw on the fact that they had this history of music together, and for whatever reason he doesn't want to be brought back to that memory, to that place, and so he's sort of abandoned and sort of left that part of his life behind, and she sort of brings it back into his world again.
Now, picking up on the question the gentleman asked, why does it take place in New York? Why? I mean, the choice of the city as opposed to London, as opposed to Los Angeles, San Francisco, or Paris.
Well, it was sort of by accident, really, in a way, and then it actually, and maybe Steve can go into a bit more detail about how it only could be New York at a certain point. But from our perspective, we started to speak to various people within the field just about their experience, and within the UK, we didn't get the traction in terms of the number of people that were willing to sort of meet us. So we did have that openness in New York, and through that, I think Abby and Steve fell in love with the city. Steve had lived there before for a while, and it sort of, it couldn't be anywhere else at that point. Steve.
Oh, sorry, I was listening to you. It was very interesting. So, no, sorry, no, I was really listening to you. It was like, I think that was it. The research which we did in New York was just incredible in the way that people were so open to talk about it, and that was the thing that sort of tipped it over. I mean, the access, I've been saying this before, the access and the sort of things in New York, 24-hour city, you get things where you want and at any time, and to place that character Brandon in that environment, with his infliction, what I think was what I wanted to do. It's the ultimate sort of metropolis, and unfortunately, with his infliction, that's where he would play out. I thought it was the best place for it.
You mean New York is the city to go when you're a sexaholic?
I wouldn't say that.
It's like a promotion for New York. It's like a holiday, sort of. You know.
There had to be a reason why I wore that T-shirt. Sir.
Mark Naglasis, the West Australian. Amazing film, Steve. Could you talk a bit about the influences on the film, the cultural influences? I sense Kubrick, I guess, in your visual style, and I also sense something like Dante's Inferno as the train circle, that kind of circles of hell. Could you talk a little about that?
Well, I really don't have any references, I must say. You know, when I'm setting up a shot, I'm not thinking about Kubrick and I'm not thinking about Scorsese. I'm just thinking about how do I do the best shot possible. I don't bring that to the game. It's I'm focusing on what's in front of me and how we could do the best we possibly can. I think any other way it just gets sort of confusing. You're not focusing. You're not concentrating.
Yes. However, when he mentions Dante's Inferno, and when you read reviews of Shame, those that have already been published, do you just go, is that how they received it or perceived it?
No, I say thank you.
Ah, okay. Questions? Okay. Gentlemen, would you like to add anything? Or is it time for lunch? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here.